Hey y'all, this podcast contains potentially disturbing content. Our show includes graphic references to topics such as sexual abuse, self-harm, violence, eating disorders, explicit language, and sexual acts. Listener discretion is advised. This show is for mature audiences only.
Good morning and welcome back to another episode of the Queer LBC Podcast. I'm your host, Nino. My pronouns are he, him. Thank you for asking. I have with me here my fabulous cohorts.
Yo, it's me, Christophe, your city top liaison. My pronouns are he, him, and that motherfucker.
Dr. Mikey here, your local licensed and practicing therapist for entertainment purposes only. My pronouns are he, she, all of them. So what's the tea, sis?
The tea is Today in Gay. The status of Andrei Hernandez Romero. Today in Homophobia. Hungary's Orban accuses EU of orchestrating repulsive Pride March. Today in Yas. Supreme Court rules to save free access to PrEP and other preventative care. Today in What the Fuck, Long Beach LGBTQ Center agrees to settlement with former executive director who said he was fired for being a whistleblower. Also in What the Fuck, Beyonce is racist. No, I'm just kidding. Any of you queens know about any of these things?
I do not, but I'm also interested in that Long Beach LGBTQ Center settlement, the former executive director who said he was fired for being a whistleblower. All right, so the Long Beach LGBTQ Center has agreed to a settlement with the nonprofit's former executive director who filed a wrongful termination complaint in November 2023. The situation was resolved amicably. Torres was hired in March 2021 and fired in August 2023. His contract had been renewed a few months before he was fired. But after Torres was suspended in July 2023, the board appointed Eli Perez, who was a board member, as interim executive director. Perez joined the board in 2021. Under nonprofit experience on her application, Perez wrote none, according to the document that Q Voice News obtained. While she was a board member and before she was named interim executive, Perez voted to suspend and then fire Torres, according to the documents Q Voice News obtained. Perez was named executive director in July 2024, but her time has been plagued with controversy. The payout to Torres is the third troubling incident that happened at the center since last year. A former board member sent an open letter to various elected officials and community members in April 2024, accusing Perez of making inappropriate sexual comments, gaslighting, mocking, derogatory comments of clients, staff members, and former board members, and creating a hostile workplace by violent, aggressive, and persuasive threats, actions to staff. Torres said his firing was retaliation for being a whistleblower, according to the complaint. Torres complained in the center's board of directors in May 2023 that the nonprofit was operating an unlicensed daycare center, and it could be a liability if a child is injured, according to the complaint. Yeah, why would you be operating a unlicensed daycare? Now, technically, they probably don't consider it a daycare, but if you got staff members watching children, there's special insurances and licenses you have to have for that type of stuff.
Also, is that just like them like being nice to like people with kids,
right?
But then they're just like, now you're jumping on these employees have nothing to do with this. It's like, I don't want to be watching no fucking kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
the
what?
center, they have a youth program where if you're between the ages of 13 and 18, you can come in for like activities. And they have like a center where they do like arts and crafts, and you can get like homework help and all that stuff in like a queer affirming place. So, but that was the thing. Like the age range runs between like 13 and 18.
Okay.
But so this is because the way this made it sound is like those kids were under 13.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like if that was the case, then I can most definitely understand why he would want to bring that up to the board.
Yeah. I was going to say, because like having like kids that are under like 12, they're like children. And that's like a different person. That's like a different animal than like a 13 to 18-year-old.
I mean, that's also true. But
so
then
you
also
would need, like different training, I would assume, right?
True. But these kids these days, they grow up so quick. Like they, you know what I mean? Like 7-year-olds know how to use an iPad. I mean, like they know how to use technology and like it's it's kind of weird because you remember when we were young, we didn't really have those type of adult type of nuances. You know what I'm saying? Like we stayed in the child's place, but now like you can order your food on an app, take care of yourself, and you know.
Like the children today are much more like self-reliant.
Right.
I see.
Yeah. Well, they also have programs. They have like a Pride House Community Collective, which is for kids age 4 to 12, and Drag Queen Story Hour. So, and that makes sense, right? I think that the issue is less about that there's kids at the center, but more that there is an appropriate amount of
staff.
supervision,
yeah,
right? Because there is a certain level of like ratio you should have for like kids' safety, you know. And I think that if we are going to be offering services to our queer youth, then their safety should be centered as such.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, you should always have all of your fucking... You always need all your fucking licensings. Get with it, girl.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah. And y'all could just set boundaries and be like, if your kid is coming, they need to stay. And if you can't, then...
But so this guy was fired for bringing that up, basically.
Yeah, that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
Why he was fired.
But they were claiming that he was like this heinous person?
No. He was claiming that the new director, Ellie Perez, was creating a hostile work environment.
And she was on the board.
And she was on the board before she was named the interim executive director. But also, they didn't say how much the settlement was. I'm trying to see what did he get paid.
like loss of wages and things like that, I would imagine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because a wrongful termination, you can get a lot of, like, that's right.
Yeah.
And you know that I don't think the center got that much money. You know what I'm saying? Not like LA LGBT Center.
That's true. But, you know, I think we, I don't know, it feels a little like ego, right? You know, like if someone's bringing feedback to you that is warranted and makes sense, then yeah, okay, I understand maybe if your feelings are hurt or you're having some sort of feelings about getting the feedback, but this seems pretty legit in which you would want be mindful and aware of that process.
Get your license.
Get your child care licenses.
Supreme Court rules to save free access to PrEP.
What?
Shocker, right? From The Advocate. The U.S. Supreme Court on Friday upheld a key provision of the Affordable Care Act ruling in Kennedy versus Braidwood that health insurance companies must continue covering preventative services recommended by a federal task force, including HIV prevention medication, cancer screenings, and vaccines. The court ruled 6-3. That means the ACA's mandate requiring insurers to cover preventative services remains intact. The plaintiffs, a group of Christian business owners, argued that being required to cover PrEP violated their religious beliefs, claiming Medicaid. What the fuck, bitch? Not just every.
It's like the whole cake situation again.
HIV goes against your religious beliefs.
It's because they don't believe in gays that they should exist.
Only gays.
It violates their religious.
Mm-hmm. That's fucking insane, girl. Like, it's a really insane interpretation of your fucking book. Anyways, claiming that the medication encourages homosexual behavior.
Girl.
A lower court had previously sided with them, sparking concerns that the ruling could jeopardize nationwide access to dozens of preventative health services. Medical experts and LGBTQ+ advocates emphasize that PrEP is used by people of all backgrounds and sexual orientations, and HIV does not discriminate. Say it louder. HIV does not discriminate. This is never about religious liberty. The statement continued. It has been about using LGBTQ+ people as a scapegoat to push a broader agenda that punishes the vulnerable. And the truth is that most of the people harmed by this decision wouldn't have been queer. They would have been working class families, Black and brown communities, rural Americans, and anyone who relies on the preventative care to stay healthy and alive. Anyways. Well, that's great, right?
It is.
I know. It's a big win. I love this.
Very good. Very good.
Like, this just feels like the whole like cake situation over again, right? You remember that? Or
yeah.
So like, I just don't understand as to why can't these things be like filtered out? It's like, oh, you're bringing up religion. You want to have the government make a rule around your religion. that is going to discriminate against people. Like, why aren't we just throwing the cases away? Why do they have to get this high to the Supreme Court? This goes back to the idea that we've been talking about, how it's always the same thing over and over again in a different kind of flavor.
Exactly that. Yeah, it's just kind of like, why are you even allowing this in the court? Like, just say that it's stupid. You know it's fucking stupid, but I mean, we know why. Because it's the fucking judges.
Yeah. The Supreme Court, though, has been like handing out some decisions that are surprising given how it's stacked.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
I don't know what's going on with this big, beautiful fucking bullshit. I'm slow on that. I don't really know. I'm kind of like trying to like not think about it.
Yeah.
Same.
But I think everyone should be aware, because it's like, yeah, they're like all, like they said, like this should be used for everyone, not just gay people. Because the reality is that straight people are getting infected with HIV at higher rates than queer people nowadays, because we understand and are aware of our history. Do we make some stupid decisions? Yeah, we do. You know, but I think we also know how to care for ourselves and how to go seek support when in terms of our sexual health.
Yeah.
Stupid ass. That's like Hobby Lobby. It's like, girl, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. I just don't understand how, I'll never understand that argument of like how being queer and like providing medication is interfering with your ability to commune with your God. I don't understand that.
I don't understand that either. Oh well. Any other news? Anything real? What's going on with your real life? Did you guys enjoy Pride?
I did. I just got back from San Francisco Pride, which was a beautiful. The weather was beautiful. The people were beautiful. It was a great time. A lot of walking. I don't know how people do them hills, but it was a good time. Went out to a couple of bars and Dolores Park and hung out and whatnot. So it was good.
Yeah, I went on Queer Retreat this weekend. Up north, actually, not too far away from San Francisco. So it was like a Thursday to Sunday event. It's essentially like queer people coming together and just being in community. But there's also a lot of healing and spiritual work that happens. Like there's a bunch of workshops. This year they had a workshop on like sexual health and about like consent and how to communicate your needs to your sexual partner, which is beautiful. I think we definitely need that education. And there was workshops that focus on helping people like heal from their trauma or to connect with their bodies. So it was like a really beautiful like alternative queer pride. If anyone's interested in that queer retreat, check out Queer Soul. That's the organizers, the name of the organization. They do queer retreats twice yearly now, one in January and one in June for Pride Month.
Oh, okay.
Right? That's like something that people are always asking for.
Gotta heal.
Yeah.
And how do you find them again?
The Queer Soul. And soul is SOL, like the sun in Spanish. And the event is called Monteum.
Okay. That sounds beautiful.
Yeah, so come check it out. They do the retreats, and they also do like an event called Something Beautiful near San Diego, where there's people who come and do body work. There's like a tarot reader last time. Me and my husband offered a sound bath and music to the event, and it's a place just to kind of meet other people. Another person was doing pictures, and they were like a drag queen, and they're helping you kind of like, they're doing a photo shoot with you to kind of connect with yourself and connect with that aspect of yourself. Well, not drag, but just kind of just feel yourself on picture. And that happens every 2 months. I think that's the plan. So
that's cool.
Definitely a great organization, and I'm proud to be on the board and to support it.
That's great.
Congrats.
We love to hear it.
Yeah.
What about you?
I saw my Beyonce's mother.
Okay.
So that's Pride related, right? These gay families.
Gay love. Queer love.
It was his brother's birthday, so we went to Frito Misto in Hermosa Beach, I think. It's an Italian place. It was actually really freaking good. And it was nice. All the nice parts were nice. And yeah, I did that. And then I actually saw my dad this weekend also, which was random. So I saw all the parental units. So that was a time. And then I just almost had a heat exhaustion today because it's very hot outside and I was working outside. I'm construction daddy, podcast fatty.
Well, I'm glad you hydrated.
And so I was drinking so much water and I was still like, I'm just going to pass out. So it's very hot outside. And yeah, that's about it. Just happy to have a monetary source of income.
Okay. That's what we need.
That's all that matters.
Amongst other things. Also very happy to have my fiance and my dog.
Yeah.
They give me lots of love this weekend.
Cute.
Budapest, Hungary. Prime Minister Viktor Orban called Saturday's Pride repulsive and shameful. La 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 la. I loved it. I loved seeing all those people out there defying.
Right.
Would you defy?
Of course.
Police?
Bro, we defy all the time because we queer.
Right?
We are the resistance every day.
We'll live and walk in the truth.
Right. But I thought that was cool. I'm like, ew, why are y'all trying to crack down? I mean, don't be cracking down. Anyways, great.
But yeah, I love seeing things like that. I think we definitely need to see and highlight more of people speaking out against homophobia and transphobia because it's so easy to get bogged down and focusing on like the negative and not see that there are people in our corner and there are people doing things to make it better.
Yeah, and that you're not alone.
Yeah, exactly. We have allies. But that's what allies should do. Allies are the ones that should be like putting extra hard work into this process to get rid of like homophobia and transphobia.
It's so funny just like how insane like the government, that's so insane that the government just like chooses gay people to like make their political pawns in such like an insane way. Like you're saying that this whole Pride event was orchestrated by fucking what? No, bitch, it's people who fucking believe in the fucking LGBTQs.
It's people who exist.
Right? People who are real.
It's not make believe.
Exactly.
Like you really bought that many actors? What the fuck? No. Everybody was paid how much to be there?
Yeah, right?
Show me the receipts, girl. Show me the receipts. Anyways, any other queerness? Any other queer joy? My queer joy has just been my boyfriend this weekend. Or, excuse me, my fiance.
That's nice.
My queer joy was just being around all those queers and allies in San Francisco.
It doesn't San Francisco have a different vibe in terms of Pride?
It do.
After the retreat, we went to Pride and we went to Dolores Park. And oh my God, like that was just such a wild experience of like so many queer people collecting at a park and being in nature and just doing them. Like there was people were obviously in their social groups.
And they social groups with like tents and like canopies and just
but everyone was
food,
so
music.
friendly. They're like, you need a picture taken, you know. It was just like a really amazing experience. And I was like, LA would never.
Right. Because I was speaking to somebody while I was in line to the bathroom and he was like, he likes when Pride comes around because it also bring out the best in people in San Francisco. Because other than that, it's not really, they're not really as friendly as what he said. He was like, during Pride here at Dolores Park, like it's all about love, community, this, that, and the other. But he was like, any other time, really, it's not like that same vibe. It's the same vibe in that sense, but not like joyful.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody, you know, having a good time.
Yeah.
Like a queer event.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I haven't been inside like a Pride festival in years. I usually go like to the bars nowadays, but I'm like this event like really inspired me to like just hold up somewhere at a park and like collect with people.
Exactly, because that was like almost what that wasn't like, that was just a pop-up. Like that's not where because the festival I think was like in downtown San Francisco. Yeah. But like the Dolores is almost like, you know, like the impromptu pop-up.
Yeah,
like,
that's where everyone goes.
Come up, right.
Yeah. Well, actually, it looks city sponsored because I saw a big banner that said Dolores Park Pride. It's on, you know, on the other side, like on the other side of once you get on the hill of the park. There's a huge sign that says Dolores Pride.
Oh, okay.
So I'm wondering if it's like kind of like, because there was porta potties too. So
like
it's definitely like city sponsored in some way.
All right. Any other queer shit? I did something really queer. Not queer. I did something really...
Gay.
No, just something that's like, I don't know. I have a sticker collection.
Oh my God.
And it's like, I have these stickers that are like, they're like nice quality stickers. They're like artistic stickers.
Mm-hmm.
And like also like really good memorabilia ones. And also really good Sailor Moon ones that I don't want to put on things and ruin it and like waste
So you collected
impact.
them?
Yes. Well, I just never stick them on things. Like I have the intention in my brain that I'm going to stick them on something one day.
Uh-huh.
But I just collect them and hoard them because I'm too scared to like...
It's too much commitment.
It's too much commitment to post them.
I feel you.
So this weekend I said, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to reevaluate my sticker collection and I post it on my little water bottle. But then I really only put the ones that were like...
That you don't really care for that much no more.
Yeah.
Rank order.
You're like, right.
Not my favorite.
Not my favorite. I don't like you anymore. You go on the
But then I thought like, what if I just put my sticker collection on display on like a punch thing and then they can just be on display and you don't have to stick them? Is that like insane?
How about you do this? How about you get like a frame and just like post it and you can make it art and you just hang it up on your wall.
I think that's cute.
Because I have these really nice Sailor Moon ones that my fiance gave me that I can't waste on like something dumb, and then you wash the water bottle and then it gets nasty. Like, no. So yeah, that's what I did this weekend. And then I reorganized my shelves in my computer room. Which has all my knickknacks. So I was just getting like very like, I don't know what you would call that.
Some spring clean.
Mm-hmm.
I raged all weekend, so I've...
Get it.
Streets.
Acquire joy.
Right. All right. Is that it? Is you guys still thirsty?
I am no longer thirsty. I need to stop talking.
I'm actually quenched.
Very quenched.
Right.
All right. These queens have deserved a break.
Hey y'all, Christophe here, and we just wanted to say thank you for all the love and support, but don't forget to go ahead and give us a 5-star review, a like, a heart, a comment. You know, they all help the podcast a lot. From all of us here at the Queer LBC, we greatly appreciate you. Now back to the show.
And we're back. So today I wanted to talk about immigration. Yes, today we're breaking down what every immigrant, ally, and community member needs to know in these uncertain times. And with us to discuss, we have two very special guests. First, we have immigration lawyer Anthony. And also, we have with us a very special guest appearance from local celebrity Chello Azul. Chello Azul was just hanging out in the studio today, so I thought we would just pop him in for the conversation. But Anthony, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Who are you? What are you? Why are you?
Well, first, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here. My name is Anthony. I am an immigration lawyer. I am from Southeast Los Angeles, where a big population, predominantly undocumented communities and population lives in. It's a very dense, if you look on a map or even Google this fact, in Southeast Los Angeles, it's probably the biggest population of undocumented folks, and not many people know that. So when I think Southeast LA, I think Bell, Maywood, Southgate, Bell Gardens, to name some of a few cities. But for me, I am a person who's always been for my community. I went to law school knowing that I wanted to be of service to others, particularly given the experiences that I had growing up in Southeast Los Angeles. So for me, I knew it was my goal always to use my privilege, to use my education, to use any form of advocacy skills I ever gained to support my community. And that for me that's where immigration came into the picture. It was right after undergrad. I don't know if you all experienced this, if you happen to have that experience as a 21-year-old, I'm like, what the hell do I do after? Mm-hmm. I remember finding out about grad school or law school in my third year. So when I went to college, I was like, wait, I just don't become a doctor after these 4 years?
Right.
More school?
yeah. Like more school. Where the hell's my degree? Like, I wanted to be a doctor right out.
Yeah.
Because that's, I'm a first generation Latino, queer Latino from Southeast LA. And for those reasons, you don't really hear anything about what education is, right? In terms of higher education. So me navigating this process to get to where I am now, it not only took for me the resilience and the strength, but also my community behind me. So I never forgot that. That was always really, really important to me, that no matter what I did, no matter what path I chose, I knew that I would have to use my degree, my education for the communities that need it the most, which is where I fell in love with immigration law.
That's so fucking great.
Yeah.
Aw. Well, what the shop?
And do you have any connections to Long Beach, or do you work with the Long Beach community as well?
So I formerly did work with the Long Beach community. I worked with organizations such as Orale, which is a really down-ass organization that some of the best people I ever met who do great work with the community as organizing, and particularly did some advocacy with Long Beach City Hall to get funding for Long Beach community members, particularly to do immigration consults and also do some work in regards to those who never knew about, let's say, their rights, right, as undocumented folks or immigrants in general, because just because you're an immigrant doesn't mean you're undocumented. Those are two different things, but sometimes we use them interchangeably, right? So for me, I've done that advocacy. My connections to Long Beach stem from back, like, I would say for like at least the last 10 years, because even though I didn't service Long Beach community directly, a lot of my clients to this day are in this area. So it's very important for me to know and just be a part of that community as well.
That's amazing. Yeah. Thank you for the work that you do. And we love Orale, by the way. So if you're listening, Orale, we love all the work that you do.
Shout out to my homies.
I think that they're the next guest.
They should be. They're amazing people.
Yeah, we repost Orale all the time. So what are you seeing with your clients?
Ooh, girl, what am I not seeing is the question. It's so funny because, as in this position, it's like folks will come to you as you are the all-knowing person, right? But like, damn, like sometimes I don't even know, know? And there's I would say there may be like an expectation of this, like, of this status of the license that you will have the answers to everything and that everything you say is absolute, right? It's like, oh, can you guarantee me that this can't happen? XYZ can't happen. But the reality is, it's like, I could provide you what the law says, but I can't also gauge what that reality is going to be. And that reality is going to be, especially nowadays, very different from what it should be, right? So with that, it's what I'm seeing a lot is people who are afraid to assert their own protection, to seek that peace, to seek that self-sufficiency. Like I often see that with survivors of domestic violence, and I'm getting reports now, and just with my own experiences, that people are afraid to even apply for that, to go to court, to want to seek those protections that are available to them. And it's disheartening. It's sad, and it's very worrisome, because even then it's that you think like, okay, then if the court can't protect me, if these people or this institution can't protect me, then what do I have left? Am I being forced to now stay in a very abusive relationship because of that? Am I being forced to stay inside and have to endure other circumstances that I shouldn't have to, or that the law guarantees me protection from? And oftentimes it's, I respect what my clients want and what they do, right? It's like, I'm not going to judge you for being afraid to leave your home, because we're seeing right now in our communities that ICE is essentially kidnapping people, taking people, and really not even asking questions later. It's detaining now and asking questions later. Or even if you have some sort of protection, I've also heard reports across different community members and different organizations that even if you have a work permit or some kind of authorization, you're still being detained, right? It's that let's detain you now and we're asking questions later. And almost violating people's rights. And to that extent, it becomes a hard thing when, as lawyers or as community members seek like a legal consultation or some kind of help, it's that, well, in my opinion now, I don't think the law is here to protect you. The law is not the answer here, right? So, which is why I'm not only seeing like the really, really tragic and the really sad and sometimes very hard to work in these conditions, but also what I've seen is, I would call it like a light of sorts. You see what happened in Los Angeles, people, the protests, people standing up. Like, I think in my lifetime, there have been several different forms of resistance, but this is something, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm aware of it more now than I was when I was younger, or it may be because of my privilege of being able to understand what these things mean. But I would say that I see people gathering and organizing, and it's so fucking beautiful. I have it makes me proud. It makes me proud to be from LA. It makes me proud to work with this community, to be of service to this community, because it's depressing, it's tragic, yet it's so fucking powerful that you leave inspired in some form or another.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I want to echo with what you said about how they're, not protecting people, right? They're really like violating everyone's rights, and we got to name it. They are violating our rights. But I think it's easy to see it how in that picture, like, well, yeah, like our migrant communities, whether they're documented or undocumented, are being targeted. But this is something that all people go through all the time. Like, police do that to our Black siblings. So where's our Black siblings' rights there? And so if there's no rights to our citizens, then there's definitely no rights to the non-citizens. And that's why, together we got to be like, also realizing like, you can't just follow the rules. Like, I know I'm not advocating. I mean, yeah, Chello Azul, not Queer LBC, but Chello Azul is advocating for violence. And so you can come for me, government, or whatever. But like, I do believe that if in those situations where like the Black Panthers, they had to take arms and they had to protect themselves. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing our people de-arresting, and I think that that's what we should be doing as community members, is learning how to de-arrest and coming through and stopping and not complying. And I think that's the part where if ICE is not complying with human rights, then we shouldn't be complying with ICE.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Because it's a whole legal like free-for-all, right? Because if your rights aren't being read, or you're abusing people, or you're tricking them, kidnapping them, and then also denying the fact that you even have them in custody.
Or I think another thing I've been seeing just through not only my fellow, other immigration lawyers, is that now people are being transferred across. So it's being hard to even locate people. Like, people are disappearing.
That's on purpose.
That for sure. And I think too, like in this whole fucking shitty situation, it's like, I'm never going to judge people for how you choose to resist, because in a way, all bets are off, right? So it's like, why am I going to judge you for, choosing to react how you choose to, if say, they're trying to take away your parent, right? I think I saw also the TikToks kind of were really sad too. It's kind of sometimes hard to find joy, but what I see is the resistance. What I see is the power, and with that, that's gonna look in different ways. And I can't judge people for shit for that reason, right? It's like, okay, that's the critique, and it's always the critique of protest, right? It's like, well, don't, it can't be violent, or it can't be this, it can't be that, and I'm like, well, like, that's also fucking privilege for you to say, like, where are you coming from in all this?
Yeah, and the critique is always on the protest rather than the oppressor.
Right.
I read something where it's like, peaceful protests work great when the people in power have some sort of compassion, some sort of humanity in them.
Yeah,
they don't.
Oh, I know, but then, like, you can't fight fascism with peacefulness, because they don't have that. They don't have that component to them. They just are seeking power and to harm people.
Yeah.
Was there a peaceful way to take down Hitler, or was there a peaceful way that they took down Osama bin Laden? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, look, like, even people speaking out, like, I remember recently the vice mayor of Cudahy. I don't know if y'all saw that.
Oh yeah. She called out the homeboys, right?
Yes. And now she's being investigated by the FBI. That shit's wild.
That's Wait, say it again. Right, I didn't hear.
So there was I think she's a vice mayor. I forgot her name. Right. She's from the city of Cudahy. That's who the constituent she serves, and she made a TikTok about essentially calling, like, for the support of, like, the gangs, right? To support against ICE, right? I think something she said was like, yes, her name is Cynthia Gonzalez. Yes. And with that, she kind of said, like, well, where are you at now? Like, in reference to those folks, that community.
Facts.
Yeah. And with that, like, now the FBI is involved, or like there's a federal agency that's involved investigating that. But she deleted the TikTok, like, soon thereafter.
Oh my God.
But now she's being investigated. Like, it's crazy.
I mean, that's wild.
That's cool though. I mean, if you're not doing your job, if you're not getting FBI,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's Cudahy's small, right? It's part of Southeast LA as well. It's really small. I know that, like, predominantly immigrant, undocumented, and low income, like, for sure. And with that, it's like we're seeing the federal government even paying attention to a small city like Cudahy, right? So is it fear? Hell yeah, probably is.
Yeah.
But
so it's true though. Where are these cholos at?
I was gonna say, did they call her back?
Where are you? I thought you're supposed to be protecting the streets, bro. You're not protecting the streets,
no.
Right? Don't want to patrol now, bitch.
Yeah. So it's like also making a lot of people, specifically people in power, to like scared to say something, right? Even if you see, and here's another thing too, like we're talking about people releasing statements, like every day it's a new statement from somebody. It's like, okay, y'all, like statements, come on, like we're done. It's 2025. We need to have action.
Right.
And it's like after every tragedy or some kind of legal impending doom decision happens, it's like, okay, we have then the Mexican American bar like saying something, right? And we have all the other like bar associations, or at least in my realm, or just, a nonprofit organization saying something, right? But like at a certain time or another, statements are just, for me personally, in my own, like just my personal belief is that I've come to a point now where statements are just nothing but words, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing with that?
You need action.
You need action. And it's like, okay, y'all, like anybody could release a statement. Like, what are we doing here? Like, we need to be mobilizing. We need to be doing something.
Yeah. So we talked about kind of like, obviously like the critique on violence and the need to kind of resist and de-arrest people, but I'm curious, like how does that work? How because obviously we can do that, but then what is the response? So like how would the judicial system respond to that?
Well, I want to shout out the National Lawyers Guild, the Los Angeles chapter. They have a jail support LA where if you do get arrested, they have lawyers, they have people who mobilize and support those folks who have been detained for, I think it's, what are people mostly detained for, civil disobedience or something like that. And they have a whole team dedicated to that. They are really good. They can also send legal observers at protests, which are people usually in green hats that are there just to monitor the situation. In case somebody gets arrested, they can support, they get the person's information, they do what they can in that moment and then help facilitate things after, or just making sure things go not as smoothly as possible, because like what is that anymore?
Yeah.
Right.
Just make sure they got a video going, basically.
Right, they're taking notes, so they'll take notes on the field, and they if you are interested, they do trainings for folks, community members, to be legal observers. You don't have to be a lawyer. A lot of lawyers, or some lawyers do that, but you don't have to be a lawyer. I think it's anybody. You could be trained by them, and they take notes. They do all these things that can help you then, like, can help folks who are detained by police, etc.
Well, that's amazing. How do our listeners sign up for this?
I would say follow NLG, National Lawyers Guild Los Angeles chapter on Instagram, and then they will have the connections right there to like their little link trees or the links to be able to. They also post it every now and then, specifically given the current situation and what's going on.
You also said jail support LA.
Jail support, yes. Yes.
Very good. Are the police attacking these observers?
Well, see, that's a really interesting question too, because we're seeing, like, honestly, you've heard the sanctuary city? Yeah. So what does that mean, right?
We have issues with it.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
just words.
Exactly.
No, it's just words.
At first, like, if you hear that colloquially, or just like you're thinking like, okay, then everybody's safe. Like when I heard that, like before law school, I was like, oh shit, okay, this is dope.
No, right.
We're good, right? We're chill. We're not gonna, like, people are safe if they come to the city. But what that really means is that the city is not dedicating money to enforce ICE kind of raids or ICE detentions. That's all it means. Nothing else in that. And because, as we're seeing, we're a sanctuary city, and it's been a target of the administration to hit up these cities, right?
Yeah. It just seemed like if we're a sanctuary state, that maybe the governor should have the NYPD or whoever the fuck is supposed to be guarding us attacking the ICE agents.
Exactly.
Right. So I think Huntington Park that passed something recently that said that, because there's also like all this shit's happening, right? Everything's chaotic, everything's a mess. But now there's like, have you heard that there's bounty hunters?
Yeah.
That shit was wild to me. Like, what are we watching? Like, is this a TV show here? Like, that's crazy shit. So with that too, it's like, okay, so what, like, you're leaving space for all these things to happen. I also read recently that a person posed as an ICE agent and sexually assaulted a woman.
Yeah, we're hearing lots of those kind of stories.
And like sanctuary city, what does that mean? It's just the city resources. But with that, it's like, I think the justification there is like, okay, well, we're not enforcing ICE enforcement or raids or detentions. What we're really doing is ensuring that the protests, like to combat the violence, right? Quote unquote, the violence. But that's kind of also taking the form and passively, or if not explicitly, allowing like ICE to just do what they want, right?
Exactly.
And then you get this like weird cyclical argument of like, we're here to ensure peace, to preserve peace. But when has it ever? Right?
Yeah.
No.
Cops don't bring peace.
Not at all. And I think also like Karen Mayer Bass should be held accountable. This is her city and she's not protecting it. And in fact, she's releasing the cops on their own people.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like if you're like, well, this is, and then they go on and say like, oh, this is terrible, don't hurt our community. It's like you have every power and you have every authority to protect your community and you're not doing it.
Yeah.
Instead, you're allowing police officers to help and aid. You know, that's what we were watching is like the police show up and they block around so that the ICE agents can do what they got to do. That's not protecting the peace. That's protecting ICE agents.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you go on there saying that you're not involved and this is terrible and blaming this all on Trump. It's like, no, like how you be like, how dare you do that? Someone please stop them, even though I have all the power to do it. And you don't do anything.
Yeah. Well, see, like even with our political figures, right? It's like Mayor Bass got a lot of shit because of the fires, right? Like she got so much shit for it and by the firefighters, by all these different institutions. And another one was that people think that the police are defunded. She's actually increased funding for the police. A lot. And like, I don't want to hear that like the defund the police is a reason why everything is like, first of all, it hasn't been defunded. It's been increased.
Yeah.
And even with like, what's his name? Governor Newsom, like
trash.
He's trash too. Like he's been, I remember like, was it a few months ago, maybe 2 months ago, he was aiming to defund Medi-Cal for undocumented populations.
And then for trans people.
And yes, it's like, come on, be so fucking for real with me here, because that kind of lines up with, well, from my understanding, that he wants to run for president eventually, right?
Oh, yeah, it's going to happen.
Okay, yeah. So then he's like, okay, how do I become politically aligned with the rest of the country?
Yeah.
Let me attack immigrants. But baby boy, you're in California. Like, that's not going to be that easy. People are standing up, and I think even some organizations were like, I don't know if this happened, but I know they were going to work together to be like, if you do this, if you eradicate Medi-Cal funding for undocumented communities, you will never be president. And I thought that was so, like diva, like that, I thought that was so country.
It's true though. Like,
it is.
You can't do things anymore. I feel like the Clinton era was the end of an era of anonymity, right?
Right.
And so it's like now we're all watching. Like, we want to know where the next Monica Lewinsky is, so we're looking at what you're doing.
But can I say something? Like, okay, also Monica Lewinsky has a podcast. I highly recommend everybody listen to it.
I love her TED Talk.
I like her.
Great.
Yes, I've seen the episode of Miley Cyrus. That's a little side note, but shit, what was it going here? About, his, are you all on TikTok?
Yeah.
Okay, have you seen his fucking posts? Like, Gavin Newsom's?
No, I don't know her.
Okay, well, she came up with my FYP, like, but it was like, it was insane because there's professionalism, whatever, right? Like the politics of it all. But I remember seeing there was 2 slides. One was a slide of how Trump was coming after California. And the other one was a slide of like, fuck around and find out, the graph.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, is this the governor's TikTok account that this came from?
That's great.
I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, but also, where the fuck are we that you're posting this shit?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening?
Like, is this hell?
But also, where's that energy when it matters?
Right.
You know, like, same thing with Robert Garcia. I always like to drag that hoe. It's like, where is it where it matters? When it matters, like, you're all sassy over there fighting with girls on the Senate floor, but when it really matters, you're over here putting our children in cages in the Long Beach Civic, the center right here, and fucking on Pine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, where are you when it really matters? But then you're over here decorating your office with Marvel comics. I'll stop.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's another thing, right? Like, how are you going to say you're a sanctuary city and then you're using city buildings to house people? Like, that's not a sanctuary city. You're literally jailing people and contributing to the kidnapping.
Allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
So
that's how you show up. And if you're a sanctuary city, then you don't do that.
Also, I guess y'all got to start boycotting AMPM and ARCO.
Wait,
where am I going to get my chicken dicks?
Because that's who be funding all this fuel, and they do doing a lot of shit for ICE, I guess. Yeah, I just saw right now.
Hell no.
Let me get you the real facts.
Give us the tea, mama.
Let me get you the alternative facts.
The alternative facts. The creative facts.
The ones I just made up.
The AI facts.
British Petroleum, BP, which also owns Arco and AMPM gas stations, has the largest fuel contract with ICE and the Department of Homeland Security worth over $550 million. The Defense Logistics Agency is a U.S. government combat support agency under the Department of Defense. It doesn't only fuel military vehicles, it also provides logistics and fuel to other federal agencies, including ICE, CBP, which is Customs and Border Protection, and the Department of Homeland Security. That means that the DLA signs a fuel contract with companies like BP or Marathon. They fuel detention transports, surveillance vehicles, raids, and deportation flights.
Wow.
Didn't know that. You know, something I find very jarring when we're talking about like transportation and just militarization of everything is that I was driving on the freeway and I saw a fucking tank. I was like,
oh yeah,
where the hell am I? Like,
right?
What's going on?
Where were we when we saw the police were they were, it wasn't the police. It was like, it was a police vehicle. It was a military, it looked like a military vehicle. And then you look up and then it said police.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do they need a fucking tank?
Yeah. I think we're driving up north.
Yeah. We're on our way to the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
And you know,
a fucking tank.
That's another thing too. It's like everything is unprecedented, right? I'm kind of sick of hearing that fucking word in some respects, but it is, and I get it. And one of the things that I saw recently is sometimes in immigration court, you can have your case dismissed. Actually, there's a couple fucked up things that are happening or have happened, particularly starting in San Diego and then working its way up through California, was that you can have your case dismissed by a judge, right? It's also a process known as administrative closure. And that basically means you're still, at any time we could bring it back up. But for right now, you're good, right? Usually that's for folks who have like TPS. Like I've seen in the context of folks who have TPS. And now I'm seeing that if you haven't applied for anything else that you could qualify for, they're bringing that back up and they're saying, I think the language I saw was based on recent checks. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what recent checks? Mm-hmm. Are you going through all your list of folks who in the history of that court or what have you, are you going through that list and then finding out who hasn't applied for anything, like doing extra surveillance on them and then trying to throw them back into deportation? And that's kind of some crazy shit I've never seen. Like, that's kind of unheard of, unprecedented.
Yeah. They're like, we have a lead because you have something to do with immigration at all.
Literally, like, however, the language was, however, based on recent checks. Mm-hmm. And me, I'm like, what does that mean? You know,
they're like, bitch, you never do recent checks.
Yeah, like, wait, how are you finding this out? Like, what are you doing? What records are you accessing, or what are you doing to find out these things out? And it's kind of like that generalization of language, even the way they use those words. It's highly alarming.
Yeah. So what is your your cohorts or like your colleagues or people that are kind of like in your realm and world? What are their reactions to judges being thrown in jail or being arrested, or judges that are being kind of like...
Right. So one thing that I saw was that they started in San Diego, was that if a judge dismissed a case, then sometimes it meant it's not that you didn't win. Dismissing just means we're just going to get rid of it. Doesn't mean that you won your case or not. It just depends on how that's being used. And what was happening is that they were dismissing cases and they still remained as undocumented folks, their status. And then outside the door or like outside the court was ICE to detain them. Yeah. Wild shit. So I was advised that if that is your situation, that the judge or they're known as, I call them ICE attorneys, but TA's trial attorneys. I forget what their official name is. But if that's your situation, they're trying to dismiss your case, you say, no, I want this shit to go through. You oppose it because then that's going to be a reality, is that they're outside waiting for you.
It's a setup.
It's a setup. Yeah, it could be a setup. And so that's what I was advised, at least for folks in immigration court. But honestly, like, because of the funding cuts and because of how the insecurity of it all, like, folks have had to withdraw cases. Like, organizations have had to withdraw like hundreds of cases because they lost all their funding. All their funding was federal.
That's what I saw too. I feel like they're going through a systemic cleaning and scrubbing everything because they were going after nonprofits.
Yeah.
And so they're going after nonprofits. They're also going after students who are legally here through visas. Anyone who speaks in contrary to the government, then all of a sudden, boom, revoked. Right. And so, and then any judges that are like actually, doing what they well, I'm not pro judge in any situation. Like, I think judges are part of the police department. And like I say, fuck the police, all of those. And so I just am seeing like the people that are being put into these positions of power are the people that are going to be working for the system, not against the system. And then anyone that has any sort of like remorse and works for the people, I'm seeing that there's a backlash for them as well.
I mean, I would also like to add too, like, I don't know if you all know this, but immigration judges are appointed. They're not elected. They're appointed. So who's in charge of that? The executive branch. Yeah.
Is that what they think like checks and balances is? Like,
that's not a thing anymore.
Right? Okay. It sounds like they're really dismantling the judicial system.
Who are we checking? Right? Who are we balancing? Because that's not what I'm saying.
But it never really was, though, right?
No.
I mean, never really was. And so, like, as someone who is like a person of color, and someone that is going into the systems, is there points in your time where you're decompartmentalizing, or like what's your experience as a person of color going into these oppressive systems?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I think it's hard for me to compartmentalize when this shit is like in your face all the time. When it's so in your face all the time and you have no choice but to really like deal with it. And I think I rely on my community a lot to just decompress. That's my form. But then I also I want to do more. Right. And I'm like that type of person that like, I always want to be out there. I want to do more. I want to be like help in whatever way I can. But like, that will lead to my own burnout. So that's my form of compartmentalizing is like taking care of myself. Because this work was hard before. This shit was hard before. This shit's never been easy because things have been changing. What's so funny is for me, I think this is a little funny, was that I was working during the Biden administration and a little bit during Trump, and then I went to law school. No, actually, let me take that back. I was working in the beginning of the Trump administration immigration, the shift from Obama to Trump. Then I went to law school. We were in Biden, and I'm like, okay, it's still not the best, but it's better. And now I'm back in Trump as a lawyer. So that is like kind of like a fucking kind of a mindfuck a little bit because it's like I thought I just dealt with this. Like what the fuck?
Yeah. Like is this deja vu? Like what the fuck?
No, yeah, but it's worse. It's worse though because back when I was a paralegal, like at an immigration nonprofit, it was still hard, but it wasn't as fast so soon. I'm like, I've talked to my friends and I'm just like, fuck, like, there's only been 3 months or how far are we into this shit? Like, and it's really interesting because if we want to think about like the politics of it all, it's like, this was a plan, right? And as we all know, this was a plan. This was not like just by happenstance. This shit wasn't just like from one day to the next. So I see why things are faster and coming out harder. And it makes it that much more harder to deal with as like a person who provides like services to the community. But then also that brings a question. It's like, my question was to like leadership and to these organizations, to these institutions, like y'all knew this was coming. Like, why didn't we plan better? You know, like we knew this was coming.
We know why. I got a lot of messages. Anytime a Democrat lost, I get a text message. Please donate now. Please donate now. Democrats make more money when they lose. And they have to go. The reason why we went with Biden was because that's the only option they were giving us. But also we went hard to elect someone that was not equipped for the job.
Right.
Like, why? Because we hated Trump so much more. And so I think that it makes sense that we have Trump again because the Democrats are going to be making more money. And they're like, the not Trump party. We're the not Trump party. And that's literally what they're relying on. And if they were to fight it and they were to prevent it, then they don't have a boogeyman to fight and fundraise for.
Yeah. And I see that
fundraise.
It's like, my question is to the people at the local level, right? It's like, y'all, like, come on. Everybody saw this coming, right? Like we were going to be back in this shit show, but it's harder, it's faster, and like without any form of just breathing room. And that shit is hard for everybody, and specifically the folks who are like particularly affected, right? Because one thing I think about particularly is like the folks who have temporary protected status. That shit is like on the verge of being cut every other day. And we see like countries being targeted, like Venezuela. Venezuela was hardcore targeted by the administration, and then other countries like El Salvador, that's another one. And
they won that country over.
Yeah, that's a different situation for sure. And just with even accessing like shit like asylum, like it's restricted to certain people, right?
Only Ukrainians.
Yeah.
And South American white people. I mean, wait, South African white people.
So can you explain kind of the difference in kind of different immigration statuses that people can have?
Yes. Yeah, of course. So whenever I meet somebody, I ask them primarily, like, have you ever applied for anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because it's important to know, like, people's histories, because that's going to affect them thereafter. So I could think about one particularly is that I would say, like, in the 80s, 90s era, there's a lot of people who are hiring, like, notarios, notaries, right? Who in their home countries can practice law, but here they're not lawyers. They're just people. They're just people with most likely no legal training or experience or what have you. And these people were filing asylum cases that were going to lose, essentially. So, and because I don't know if you have often heard this too, it's like, oh, well, like, I heard if I have, like, a child with special needs, like, or, like, some kind of particular disability, that I could get papers. And I'm like, well, yes and no, because you would have to be in front of a judge. But at that point, when you're in front of a judge, you're kind of fighting for your life, right? There are two people trying to deport you, most likely. The judge and then the other attorney, right? And that's if you could even get an attorney to defend yourself, because based on all this shit, like, no, like, I ask every day, is there anybody who has capacity to represent people? Because I've seen that my clients need that too, right, in the court context. And with that, it's like nobody has capacity anymore. So what the new strategy here is to educate our communities to represent themselves. Like, we all knew this was a problem, that there aren't enough lawyers to really, like, fix that need, and there never was with community work. And with that, like, you're also having to ask questions like, are you currently undocumented, meaning that you don't have a work permit or some kind of legal status like a green card or citizenship? Or have you ever applied for anything? Because sometimes when you apply for something or somebody applied for you in the past, that can help you. Can help you. We often see that in the context of, like, family petitions, right? It's like, oh, pues, mi hermano me pidió, like, antes de 99. Like, my brother petitioned me, like, before 1995. And I'm like, oh shit, this is good. So you ask those questions about their history. You ask those questions about what has happened with them, because that's going to give you context as to, like, what they can do. And sometimes, and it breaks my heart, there's not an answer. Is like, during the Biden administration, my go-to was like, right now there isn't, but, like, let's hope for comprehensive immigration reform.
Yeah.
But, that never came. So you have to kind of weigh that too. So we have our folks who are undocumented, who don't have any status, no form of protection, no work permit, no nothing, right? We also have our folks who are kind of an in-between, right? Let's say, like, DACA. You hear, like, people are not, they're not undocumented, they're documented. I've heard that, I've seen that a lot. Or people who have a work permit, but they don't have a green card yet, or will possibly never be able to apply for a green card, and will need to just have a work permit for the rest of their lives.
Wow. And then sorry, I had the question real quick. I'm aware that people can appeal a judge's decision, right? That's something that can happen. Like, let's say a judge makes a decision, you're like, nah, I don't agree, and you appeal it, right?
Yeah.
How is that something that our undocumented community members also have a right to?
Yes, they do. The issue there becomes these appeals are very complex. So it's it's not going to be successful if you don't have a lawyer, or most likely, I'm not going to say never going to be successful, but it's a hard process to navigate, because at the appellate level, you're trying to say whether or not things were done wrong with the facts of their case or with the law. And sometimes people appeal. I've seen people appeal mostly to buy themselves time, because that's what they want. They want time. And the way to do that is through appealing. But you appeal from immigration court to the Board of Immigration Appeals. And then if you lose there, you can appeal one more time at the Ninth Circuit Court, which is like a federal court. Yeah, there's a couple here in California. Yeah. So it is, but, like, I think it's hard, and I'm a whole ass, like, lawyer or whatever, but, like, I could just imagine too. It's like, shit, like, you have to read cases and write a brief and do this and do that, and that timing is very quick. It's a really quick turnaround. So the question becomes, you can appeal, but one, can you find a lawyer in time? And two, can that lawyer submit with the deadlines?
With the deadlines. And then some of these pro bono lawyers that are out there that work for like organizations and stuff, what are these organizations that pay for this? And how do our rich Long Beach listeners donate all of their rich gay money at?
Donate all your money to immigration rights orgs. But, what's really interesting about that question too is that private sector got involved too. But I don't know if you all seen this too, but the Trump administration was going after these private firms for supporting, like, for kind of, first of all, it was an attack on DEI, of course, because they got rid of all their positions. But it was interesting because instead of like some firms, they have pro bono goals, right? They have pro bono, like I want to devote my mission to supporting queer youth. I want to devote my time to doing, let's say, like criminal appeal or what have you, right? But with the Trump administration, they attacked firms and were threatening them. We're kind of revamping their idea of pro bono, not to support immigrant communities, but most likely to support, like, let's say, police misconduct cases. So their goals were being shifted and being forced by the administration. And it's the people, there are some firms that fought it, but there are some who just acquiesced. They're like, nah, we're going to do what he wants. Because that's the thing too now. It's like you're kind of cutting off these resources. But in terms of organizations, I would say donate to Esperanza Immigration Rights Project. Love them. They're the people who are educating the community to be able to represent themselves because there's just not enough lawyers. And people, even like because of the funding got cut off, people are now, lawyers are doing this for free. Like they're providing free services because what else, like what do you want me to do? Like there's two sides to this. It's like our own ethical, like our own values about being down for the community, but also it's like your responsibility as a lawyer too. Sometimes you can't get off a case unless certain things happen. So you're still responsible. And if you don't, you can have a complaint filed against you, right? But what I'm seeing is that if people can't, it's a financial burden, right?
Yeah.
Like if people can't be paid for their work, it's like, well, how are they supposed to pay their bills? So as a result, many organizations have had to withdraw hundreds of cases. Even let's talk about unaccompanied minors. Like they had to withdraw crazy shit. And since all their funding was federal, that's where you should donate your money to Kids in Need of Defense. You should donate your money to Esperanza Immigration Rights Project. Those are really great organizations. And right now we're like the immigration community, our service providers, we're in like an all hands on deck situation. So anybody down, like, and legally, like if you have any experience or even willing to mentor folks to do that work, that's really needed too, because people want to be involved, but you also have to be competent to be able to navigate that shit because that shit's complicated. And we need people to, if there's any pro bono lawyers that want to represent people in court, hell yeah. Because sometimes, like, I would say sometimes the education part of being able to represent yourself is okay, but that has its challenges too. Like I have certain clients who are disabled, who are blind, like how or like are hard of hearing. Like how is that supposed to? How are we accommodating those folks?
Yeah.
Or like kids who are separated from their parents. So if you're rich, donate your money to them. Or if you're a lawyer or know any lawyers who are willing to donate pro bono time, contact those organizations and they could arrange like a case for you to take on, or maybe even more than that.
So you mentioned kind of teaching people to for their own defense. So what tips, what advice comes along with that training?
Oh, that's a really good question. What advice comes with that is the ability to not only to know what you're walking into, right? Because in immigration court, you have kind of two different types of hearings. You have your merits hearing, your individual. And one of those hearings, you have to present your case. So I think there comes with knowing what it's going to look like. Even knowing what to say is important. Like, because sometimes you'll have to admit to certain things that are in the paperwork. But depending on who you're working with, it depends on whether or not you want to do that, right? So I think these organizations, particularly Esperanza I'm talking about, would help navigate that process, because court is scary enough, especially with everything that's going on.
Yeah.
But having an understanding of what you're walking into, how to navigate that, how to even like do simple things like check in with the clerk, do those little things, those little administrative things makes you feel better. And that's with all forms of court. If immigration court, it's with even civil court, which is like if you're looking for anything else that's not criminal, basically. And it also provides you tips on how to present yourself, right? Because one thing you don't want to do is contradict yourself, especially if you're saying like, what if you're saying you're fearful for your life, but then you do something that doesn't really show that. Like one example I see is in asylum cases where like you're telling these the judge or your officer, whoever you're in front of, that I'm afraid to go back to my country, but then you went back some time before that. So it's like, are you really, like, you don't want them to question your own credibility,
right? Speaking of asylum, there was a gentleman who got picked up by ICE who was from, I want to say El Salvador, and Venezuela. And he came over here because, he was gay and he was afraid for his life, which is, what asylum is for. Then he got picked up for ICE because he had a crown tattoo with mom and dad on it. And so then they shipped him off to El Salvador, and they haven't there was no proof of life, almost 50 days of no proof of life from the camp in El Salvador. What's your thoughts on that?
See, this is, if you have time, I would say look into their Senate hearings. I don't know if you all listen to those where Kristi Noem was being, I know, crazy, where Kristi Noem was answering for these things. And it's, I think you can see this shit all day and every day, but then you hear what these officials saying, you're like, wait,
I'm how you get this job? What the fuck?
That and where the fuck am I? That I'm hearing this, is this real? No, you can't be fucking with me here. I don't know if you listen to the one about her talking about habeas corpus, and I was like, girl, what are we doing? So my opinion about that is it's a tactic, right? It's a tactic, and it's fear, and it's working. And it's one way to it's of course it's fucked up, of course, and it makes me feel hopeless. If I had to be honest, it's kind of tragic to know that as lawyers, you're indoctrinated that the law is the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. You're indoctrinated to really analyze it and see how to see that how it's evolved and how it changed and how it could help. Actually, maybe how it can help is too far to reach, but but I would say that it makes me realize that once again, and I said this earlier, it's the law is not going to be the answer here. Right? The law isn't. And this is when I go back to these protests, where I go back to community speaking up, where I go back to people's stories. And that's why I got into the law to begin with storytelling. Storytelling is so, so important to me, to be able to, talk about people's stories and how it's led them to where they are now is one of the reasons that I became a lawyer, because it builds a connection with the community like no other. And it builds that relationship that otherwise would be very hard to have, particularly in the work that I do. You could be a lawyer and not interact with people at all, but that wasn't my vibe. I'm not sit behind my desk and just I don't know,
shuffle papers and shit.
Get my vision my vision becoming even worse, right? I got into this work. I got into community work because I believe that the community deserves representation. I believe that community stories need to be told, and in a way that it's kind of like a fuck you to the system for me. Particularly, some things I think about are expungements, where people have been arrested and they want to get rid of it. But we're giving context, we're humanizing to this person's story. We're talking about where they came from, why this happened, and how they're different. So, and it's the same thing with our undocumented populations too. When they apply for something, not everybody has a clean record, but it's that undoing that criminalization, undoing that really fucked up narrative, and kind of reframing what's happened to them as well.
That's beautiful. And in lawyer education, is there ethics? Is there and I'm not talking about practices, but for instance, we understand from history, right, that law doesn't necessarily mean right, because it's the law says you can't drink from this water fountain if you look like this. Right. So we know and have that understanding as people and human beings who grew up in this world that laws aren't always just. So is that ever even mentioned or brought up in lawyer education?
It was a little bit, but it depends on who your professor is, or it depends on who's teaching you, because I've heard it where I had a professor who was I remember him saying something along the lines of is Hispanic even a race, or is it what is this,
Yeah.
And speaking out against that was hell and high water with that one. But the answer is no. The answer is we are taught ethics, and we have to do a whole exam about it. Shout out to Richard Nixon's shitty advisor for that one. Because we have to pass a good moral character test ourselves. A whole ass application where you list where you've lived since you were 18, what jobs you've had, and volunteers, and everything legal you've done since you were 18. So for folks who are older, that shit's annoying.
Right.
But at the same time, the ethics part of it is you're learned about what your duties are, but those duties are never in relation to community, right? Those duties, so you have to seek these opportunities out, and which is why law school is very hard for people of color, and oftentimes why the retention rate is so shitty. And why bar passage rates are so shitty, because there's never any reality into the situation, if you know what I mean. Like, you could be taught all these things, but honestly, that shit has to come from you. You have to seek these things out, and it's your morals that carry you forward, or whatever your values are, your community values, if you have any, because oftentimes you're not going to find people who think like you, if ever, in law school. And the people that do, very far in between, very, very far in between.
Wow.
And that's who you hold on to, right? So you hold on to those people to then talk about these things, to then say why it's important that you need to be involved, that you need to give a shit, that you need to do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel that really resonates, because in my graduate program, like, there wasn't a major emphasis. Well, there was, like, we had a year-long multicultural class, but the class was really tailored towards, like, learning, like, stereotypes. And it felt like it was just perpetuating things rather than, like, providing an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like graduate school is really, it's a colonial thing. It's just fortifying the empire and to kind of, like, keep things status quo.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, wild. But I know we focus a lot on kind of, like, the court process. I'm curious, like, can we talk a little bit about kind of before you get to court, like, being stopped by ICE? You know, because I hear there's things going on about, like, there's a difference between being stopped by ICE and how to interact with them when they come to your house versus like when it's in public.
Yeah, and so this is where the law comes back in. The law. Gotta love your Fourth Amendment work. So the Fourth Amendment, I mean, see, like, okay, we could talk about it. I'm gonna give my, like, this is what should be the situation versus what really happens, because you see very different things playing out in social media.
Yeah.
Even given, like, what your quote unquote rights are to be. So there's more according to the Fourth Amendment, there's more protection when you're, like, in a place, property. So you're inside. So because I don't want to get into all that fucking history, but basically there's more protection than you are outside in a public space. So if you are inside and somebody knocks at your door and it is ICE, what should happen is that they should present to you a warrant, a judicial warrant, right? That can allow you to do that. There are administrative warrants that are signed by some immigration officer or a judge. That's not that. Ideally, that shouldn't give you access to enter somebody's place or bombarding or just, like, fucking knocking the door in.
Yeah.
But the reality is that has happened. So what should happen is that if you are in public and you do encounter an officer, that you should say, like, first of all, you shouldn't give any information, voluntary information, because that could be used against you. So you have to exercise your right to remain silent. You have to say, I invoke my right to remain silent, or ask for an attorney thereafter, because after that, it's like, you say those things and you keep saying those things, because anything you can say, they'll use against you. Like, if, for example, I saw it where obviously the FBI was collaborating with ICE, sometimes folks request their records, but they're using their own records to, like, determine that this person wasn't born in the US, that they were born in another country, and then therefore use that as proof to further try to deport them. So more protections if you're inside, and after in public, it's a matter of exercising your right to remain silent and exercising your right to counsel. Because you say, like, I want a lawyer right now. You don't make it like, I think I need a lawyer. Will I need a lawyer? No, you say it, because if it's ambiguous, that's further reason for them to just take you.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So once again, I need a lawyer right now. I invoke my right to remain silent.
So I would say invoke your right to remain silent, and then you ask, am I being detained? And then when you're being detained or, like, quote unquote seized, then you're like, I need a lawyer. I want a lawyer right now.
What about this? Okay, you're sitting in your car. Knock, knock, knock. Roll down the window. You just immediately say, like,
yeah. So see, there, you can come up with every situation, right? And I think you could still stand by those things, right? But, like, the thing there, when you're being stopped, is that, like, will it be used as, like, oh, this is a traffic infraction, and then further reason to detain you, right? So I think one thing important also, and I would shout out Bet Sedek, which is another they do immigration work as well, is family preparedness. Family preparedness is creating these plans in case shit goes down. Who's my contact? Who's this? Who's that? The buddy system. Like, if I don't come home by this day, this time, like, or this time, please, like, reach out to a lawyer, or having to know where your documents are. So family preparedness is really fucking important too, I would emphasize.
Well, with that, we're going to take a small break. So do you have clients that you've worked with that have been like torn away from this country, like right now?
No, not as of right now. But I do know that one thing that you also like think about is that a lot of folks come to the U.S. in, that American dream shit, right? And oftentimes, like, they have to leave their kids behind. So it's not because they were torn away here by ICE as of now. I mean, maybe I have, but I haven't heard yet. Who knows? There's a shit show every day, right? But what I have seen is, people not being able to be reunited with their families. So for like 20 plus years, right? And it's that capitalistic kind of, I don't know, like trap, right? And it's like, well, shit, I left my country either because the poverty, the living conditions, the fucking, my life was being threatened to come here for the same thing,
Yeah, and I think to add on to that is also understanding that the reason why there's poverty in the other countries and it's a bad living environment is because of America's doing the imperialism of it all. You know?
I mean, one thing I will say is that when I have done certain cases, it like, I appreciate all the work that people have done with protesting, with organizing, with community in general. But when I work with folks, or when I have worked with folks who are applying for asylum, for example, you hear some of the most downest shit you've ever heard in your life. Like, I remember I heard a story. I was doing a declaration, and she said this to me in Spanish, but I'm going to just repeat it in English here. She was like, although I knew I was going to lose my life, I knew this was going to go for a good cause. It was going to go against the government for everything they've done against, because I think during that time, Nicaragua was trying to get rid of Social Security for older folks. So she said, like, although like I knew I was going to lose my life, I knew it was for the cause. It was like this higher like self kind of vibe. And I just felt that so deep in my fucking soul. It's like, I'm not going to hear shit like this if ever. But when you see people who are like, when you work with people, they're some of the most downest people you've ever met. And some of the like tragic yet the most beautiful fucking stories of resilience, stories of power, stories of fucking inspiration. It's like you came here to this country because you were afraid for your life, because you were essentially like blacklisted, because you couldn't no longer survive in those conditions, right? Because your life was being threatened, tortured, what have you. And you come here and you have to recount that trauma. And I think that's what immigration law is too. It's recounting your trauma. And so as a lawyer, I do my best to really like lessen that. It's kind of unavoidable in some respect. And some cases are much more, it depends on each person too, because some people have processed their trauma in a way where it's like, when I ask them like what about their professional, personal goals, they say, I want to help people just like me who've been through shit like me, because I don't want anybody to ever go through something like this ever again. And that's something I hear often too. Or like even something as basic as like, I want to be able to provide for my family, and in these conditions where usually folks, or sometimes folks are street vendors, but given what's been happening in LA with the ICE raids, that's no longer afforded. Like if you've been around your community, and when I drive around mine, it's bleak. Right after, it's like, oh, I remember there was that taquiza, the taquero that was right there every day. And then these ICE raids happening, and they're gone. It's silence. And then that also makes you think like undocumented immigrant communities really hold this shit down.
Yeah.
Right?
Always have.
Yeah, always have. And to not see that beauty anymore in your own community, it's fucking bleak. And it's just like, and then that brings me to the question, like, how do you maintain hope in that, right? How do you survive? How does one cope with this certain circumstance?
I saw on social media a lady selling hot dogs at the protest, like feet from the police. That gave me hope.
Yeah,
I was
middle
like,
of the freeway.
Yeah, you know what else gave me hope was like how quickly like the community gathered.
Yes,
like how quickly. I mean, certain cities did more, and I congratulate them, and some didn't do as well. So some of y'all got tested, and some of you didn't pass. But we need to like step it up,
Yeah.
And then like, but I do understand the fear. Like if there's not enough people to rally, then it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't just have one person run up to ICE and stop. It's like, it's got to be a lot of us.
Everyone to be down.
It has to be a lot of us.
Like Bell's down.
Bell, Jesus, that's like, I live really close to that location too. And the thing is, like, once again, we undocumented folks, like you, because I used to work with other community orgs too. Like another organization I would like definitely shout out here is called Clean. They organize and do work for car wash folks, folks who work at car washes. They help with any like labor violations or just support, and they do amazing work. So I would highly suggest everybody go follow them, because they too are some of the, like, they do a lot of mutual aid as well. Like they do grocery runs, they accept volunteers, and that's another organization, the Garment Worker Center, like community or organizations that support folks like that, folks who do the jobs that we always hear undocumented communities and immigrant communities do the jobs that nobody else wants to do, right? And in Bell, that was a situation, right? Is that ICE was targeting locations where undocumented people would be, and it's like that shit. Like, come on. And like I remember they also hit up the place I go to too, the car wash location that I go to and support and like frequently go is, and that's just, you see, and then like nobody shows up the next day for work, right? And it's like you're destroying businesses, but you're like, more than that, you're fucking up people's lives. And so my question is too, it's like, how do these people like sleep at night? You know, ripping apart families, oftentimes with no that person is the breadwinner. You know, we see that with day laborers too.
Well, I mean, Nazi Germany, you know, you went to work and then you came home and you kissed your daughter goodnight.
I mean, I know how they sleep at night with nothing,
no remorse,
nothing. They're just like, oh,
it's with cognitive dissonance, right?
It saddens me to see la gente working.
I hate that so much.
When I see like a brown cop, I just like, bro, you could pick any job, and that's the job you chose.
And it's worse when they're brown and cute.
I can't even speak on that. I really want to look at them.
Yeah, I know.
Are they on the front lines? Are they on the front lines though? You know,
I've seen some in some videos.
Yeah.
And that's the horrible thing, is just like pitting the community against the community. But I mean, you chose that job, sis.
Right.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with your brain? Yeah. I mean, they think they're, I don't know, different, better. Does the white man like you more now? Maybe.
And then I guess that also like brings into, because, you know, if you want to, one of the really interesting things too is like, that I find is that when you talk to even undocumented people, the division in immigrant communities is kind of insane too. If we think about it, it's this concept of like, you know, well, I came in here legally. They didn't, you know, that's one of them. And another one is just like countries who like people from certain countries that don't fuck with other people.
I hate that.
I know.
I hate that. When my parents were trying to pull that bullshit on me, I was like, nah, dude. I go to high school with a Chilean, Argentinians, Salvadorian, Guatemalan, like all of us, we're all here. Puerto Ricans, like, we're all here. Like, nobody hates nobody for no dumb reason. Like, squash that shit quick. Like, don't even let that happen. Like, nah.
But see, it's that rhetoric, right? It's like when you're like, let's say asylum seekers, right? And other folks who are, let's say, they entered a different way or what have you. Maybe they entered with a visa. They're like, well, they're saturating the system, right? Well, they're doing this, they're doing that. And it's like, well, like, you can't see shit too, you know? And however, from a different standpoint, it's like, I reframe that. I'm just like, okay, well, that's like, first of all, that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about you. But that's just something very jarring to see in person specifically. When I felt it or seen it and heard it, I'm just like, what the hell? Like, what the fuck? Like, it kind of hits you out of nowhere sometimes.
It's pretty fucking sad.
Yeah. Like cucarachas for raid.
I'm curious, like what hope can we give like a migrant person, because I feel like they're a unique population, because me as a queer person can go out on the street and protest, right? Me as a Latino citizen can go out and protest, but like I feel the migrant community, there's so much going on and they're so fearful that they stay home.
Right. And I think that's where mutual aid comes in. I've seen a lot of orgs are doing donations. They're accepting donations and then also asking for volunteers to drop off like groceries at people's houses. I think that's very much needed, specifically because of that fear, right? And, you know, people are staying inside. That affects their income. People aren't showing up to work anymore or haven't. And that's what they need, right? They need yes, like fuck capitalism and it's fucking bullshit. And I totally get that. At the same time, people need to survive.
Yeah. We're still in the system.
That's still in the system. Like until we have an alternative system, then like let's talk. But right now it's like people need to fucking survive. People need money. People need groceries.
Yeah.
You know, and that's real. And like I also won't fault people for fighting for or just needing like to survive things, right? So that's where I feel like it should be needed and kind of take like your energy to as well. But also like I also know for example, one question I've had to myself throughout all this shit is like, what is my place? Like, where do I fall into? How can I support my communities, right? And I know that I'm not an organizer. I know that I'm not that girl, and that's okay because I want to use other skill sets and other things I could support my community, right? So like in thinking about this too, it's just like, okay, cool. I know what my place is, and my place is not here. However, what else can I do? There's always something somebody could do. And that's kind of what I want to like contribute to is that like, just because you're not like quote unquote the downest person to protest doesn't mean you can't contribute in other ways. Like mutual aid is so needed. And I think it's, for me personally, mutual aid has been a thing that it's always existed, right? But in this circumstance, how everything is so in our fucking faces, mutual aid is important. And that's what people can do too. And if you don't want to quote unquote put your body on the line, what have you, that's okay. Contribute though. Do something. You know, we talk about these statements. We talk about words. We talk about people posting a fucking repost, right? And yeah, that's not, I guess I see that's important too in its own way. But like, what action is there besides you simply reposting something on social media? And also it's like, oh, you're reposting things, but where were you last time? You know, like sometimes I also feel that people who want to be involved, it's like it's performative, I guess. And it's like, are you really down? Like what, like, is racism just something you discovered yesterday? Is xenophobia something you just discovered like last week? You know, it's like, okay, let's do some work here and let's see how we could put some energy towards the movement.
100% agree. What would you tell somebody, let's say they're the family member of a person who has just disappeared? All of a sudden, like nobody came home. What would you tell them to do if they suspect they might have been taken away?
I mean, see, this is where we have to tap into like our networks, right? So I know I know LA has one. I think Long Beach has one too. It's called a Rapid Response Network, and they have a team of organizers. Each different city has one, I believe. I know LA does. LA is run by the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, CHITLA, and they do good work too. And they have attorneys where to help locate people and help get them out of detention. So we need to be connecting to our rapid response networks to see what the next steps are. The hard part about that is that not everything is so cut and clean and easy to like do, right? So if we're seeing that people are being moved around, I think people have been moved around from LA to Texas, you know, and vice versa and back and forth. And, you know, once again, I think we said it earlier, or someone said it earlier, it's a tactic. And yeah, fucking real. I would say immediately we need to get in touch with our rapid response networks to see what can we do. And that's just not only a team of lawyers, that's a team of also organizers and community members too.
Awesome.
Yeah. But there is online, if you do have if this does work, it's called ICE Locator. If you Google it, you have their name, I believe their A number and date of birth. Yeah.
Thank you.
Legal information. Resources, yes.
Yeah. These are resources, everybody.
Yes. And it's just an easy Google search.
Any other immigration questions? Anything else?
I don't know. I feel like I learned a lot today.
I know.
I'm like all the questions were answered.
Anything that you need people to know?
Well, TED Talks, if you're hearing this, hire me. That'd be great. So I guess like for me, I always ask, like, some days are harder than others, right? And I work directly with the communities. I have the privilege of being a citizen, so it's very different. But there are a lot of folks who are impacted who are also doing this work, you know, in a different way. So I think like one thing I lean on is, I think in order to do the work that I do, I have to have hope. And like, I know that may sound corny as fuck, but like hope I need it, because if I don't have hope, then what's the point?
Yeah.
You know, I need to hope that like, and this is where like when I see LA coming together, that shit made me so proud. Like it made me so proud to be from LA, because, you know, growing up here and going to through these institutions, it's like you implicitly become ashamed of where you're from in some form or another because of classism, because of people. I remember, I'll never forget this shit. I remember I was going to be a doctor back in college, and I did my first chemistry class, and this girl, she was a white girl. She was like, "Oh, we're going to pass this class. We're going to pass it." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, for sure. Like first day, getting to know people." And then she was like, "My dad is an organic chemist and my mom is a biologist." And I was like, "Cool." Cool. Yeah, great. And then she was like, "What do your parents do?" And I'm like, "Not that." Like, no, they're like, "Not that," and she didn't talk to me for the rest of the quarter. I know. So it's like doing shit like that as a fucking 18-year-old, where it's like everything is so new, it's hard on you, and sometimes like you internalize that shit, right? But when you see like LA really rallying together, it's like, fuck, like there is hope, like there is, and it all goes back to the community. It all goes back to that same drive and fight. And when I see that, it pushes me forward. So I guess like, yeah, as corny as this shit sounds, like you gotta have hope that not things will get better, but like this shit has happened before. Not maybe not in this circumstance, but our communities have faced injustice before and we've come back. So like, ideally or another, I hope this isn't forever, but I do know that people need to be together and they're like eradicate that divisiveness, eradicate all that shit, because everybody's under attack, right? And it's like, it's these little norms that will then establish a bigger picture of more fucked up shit.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Not to cope, but to combat, right? To intervene, to, even if it's not like on this grand, like lawmaking scale, but like, I feel like doing work with people directly, like that's where I find my peace, to know that like, it's not, you're going to take a lot of L's in this work. You're going to take a lot of L's all the time. But when you have like even one win, that shit, like you hang on to that shit for dear life and you keep going, and that's where I want to end with that. It's like, gotta remain with your hope. You gotta find your joy. You just gotta hang on to the things that keep you sane. And especially if you're doing community work, because that shit isn't easy. And then sometimes you get asked all the time, like, well, like, how's it going? Like, and I'm like, well, how the fuck do you think it's going? Like, what do you want me to, like, what do you want me to answer to that?
Yeah.
Like,
it's hell, it's a shit show.
Yeah, like, have you fucking been on Google or whatever the fuck you're doing?
The room is on fire.
And then, yeah, and two, it's like, I could be an asshole about it. So I gotta like also check myself. But at the same time, it's like, okay, don't ask me a stupid bitch question.
I have one more question. Yeah. I don't know. How would you envision? How do you imagine like a more just world? Like a way to. I don't want to. For me, I don't feel like it's keeping the same system, but I'm just curious for you. Like, what is?
Damn. Yeah. I mean, it all starts from fundamentally. Like, I remember when I was beginning this work, right? And it's like, how does this shit come to be, right? If you all want to explore like a fucked up case, the Korematsu case, the Japanese internment camps, that's kind of like a key indicator of how national security can be used to justify anything, right? The internment of Japanese people, like that is one of the cases that stuck out to me because I'm like, wait, how did the U.S. allow this shit to happen? And in envisioning a just world, I have to envision that borders aren't real because they're fucking a social construct, right? They're like the levels are crazy of like, how the fuck did this shit come to be? How did we get so militarized and like criminalizing everything? And one of the things that people do, starting to think is like, well, it's a crime to enter the country illegally, quote unquote, right? But I'm like, okay, but says who, Like, so I want to say that
it's not in the Constitution, huh?
No.
For that to be, that would mean that we would not legally have any tourism,
right?
Because they would be illegal just to be here.
Right.
So it's like, what the fuck? That doesn't even make sense.
It's nothing makes sense.
Is there anybody that doesn't need a passport to enter? Is there like a country that gets to, besides Israel, it just gets to like just come and do whatever they want?
For real. I don't think so, because airplanes and then through the border you need a passport now.
Everybody needs a passport.
Yeah. Right? I remember in the 90s you just need your birth certificate at the border, from what I remember. But now that's changed, and like think about it too. Like, why did a lot of this shit change? 9/11. That was another thing, and we're seeing that again, and it's like the Muslim ban, that's going to happen again. Like Trump is going to try to do that shit again. So in envisioning a just world, I start with the framework. Like, you got to believe that this shit isn't real, and you got to believe that you, in some form or another, you got to do whatever it takes as an advocate to ensure that your people are going to be good, like the people you work for, or you work with. I'm so sorry. But in this just world, I also want to be putting immigrant communities, or particularly undocumented people, at a policy level, because it's like representation when I was younger was like the end all be all. Like, oh my God, we have AOC. Like, lipstick and hoops are gonna save us. Like, great. Okay, cool.
I fell for it too. I drank the juice.
I drank the juice too.
Sorry, I drank the juice. I was an AOC fan.
Yeah. And then every Latino, Latina was like, oh my God, like I want to be her.
Yeah, right.
But like politicians are never going to save us, right? If that's not been proven by now, I don't know what is. Particularly, like we need to get rid of it all. Like, I guess, like fundamentally abolition, right? At least with immigration, because let's think about it. There's quotas, there's this, there's that. And one thing is that when you do go against, it's somebody else deciding that person's fate. The person who decides that fate most likely will never understand the experience of that person to suffer whatever they had gone through, or whatever they're applying for, will never understand how they grew up, their living conditions, their circumstances, will never be in that personal space to then be able to make a quote unquote objective decision. One thing I would get rid of personally in the immigration system is the concept of discretion. So like the ability, like if you see oftentimes, people have full ass lives and life experiences that sometimes led to certain decisions in their life and when they were young, right? But should that bar them and plague them for the rest of their life? And discretion is that power of the officer, whoever is reviewing the case, to be like, I don't think you're a good person, or like, you show me that you deserve this. But that shit is so subjective.
Yeah. Where they become the judge.
They essentially judge, jury, and executioner at that fucking point. But it's like, well, okay, who are you to decide all this shit when you will never understand what this person's like life experiences are? And it's no matter how I communicate that to you, it will never be good enough.
But also, like, police don't even know the law, right? Don't they have like 6 months of training and you're just a killer?
Don't get me started on that, because like I have my own issues with law enforcement, particularly because of the authorities. So when I have to engage with law enforcement for the purposes of immigration, I don't pull out that like I'm an attorney card until I have to. Because I'll be nice, and then like once somebody called me, one of the officers called me like a liar, and I was like, oh hell no. Like, and especially because like I wasn't wrong. I knew what had happened, and she was swearing to me that I was lying to her. And it's that arrogance, or it's that cop training, whatever you want to call it.
Power trip.
It's a power trip. That's what it is.
I'm daddy and I say what goes.
He said, I mean, in certain contexts that works, but not this one, especially because like law enforcement, right? So the concept is like you're enforcing the law, but what if the law is unjust?
Yeah.
Then tell me that. Tell me why you would enforce it then. But, and the only thing I'll give cops is that they are put in a role where they have to do multiple things, like interpret the law in some form or another. But like, you don't have any legal training. You don't have this. You don't want to tell me what it is. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, right? If they have this quote unquote power to interpret the law in their own kind of, they're obviously not interpreting it like for the good.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing too. It's like, this is a douchey thing to say, but one of my favorite law school cases was the Miranda case, where we got our Miranda rights. But you see that being used that constantly since 1964, I believe, that being like chipped away at. So there's all these exceptions cops can do now because, our conservative Supreme Court throughout the years has chipped that away slowly. They're like, what the fuck does that even mean anymore? These rights, what do these mean? In these rights apply to everybody. So,
right.
Yeah. A just world, right?
Well, not to keep going, but so...
No.
I'm just because I know what I want to ask. So the question is that I'll get to my question, but the reality is that there's precedent cases, right? Like someone does a case and the judge decides this is how it is done through evidence and everything, and so a case is situated. Like now, when there's another case that is very similar, almost exactly, wouldn't you look back to this older case, right?
Right.
Okay, so then what the fuck is happening now when people are going back and taking back these old, which I do believe that we should go back and check things and redo things, but they're literally going back only specifically on civil rights.
Yeah, and that shit's a trip. Like, you see that and you're just like, once again, where the fuck am I? Like, what is happening in the world in the way that, like, it's a tactic, right? In order to chip away at these civil rights or the protections that have happened installed for a fucking reason, we have conservative think tanks that have made these plans from years. Like, this shit was not, once again, this shit was not just from yesterday. This shit has been in the works for a long time. It's just that people are now just starting to realize that. So they're picking, they're cherry picking who their people are to sue, right? So we're not going to put a specific, once again, we talked about the affirmative action, right? We're not going to pick a select group. We're going to pick people who are people of color, right? Because that didn't work when what's that white girl in Texas challenged affirmative action because she couldn't find a job. I think Abby something, I forgot her name, but that's what's happening is that these are long-term plans that are now coming into fruition, and that are now we're seeing the shit in real time, the consequences of like a plan that is almost being executed, like halfway executed. I think Project 2025 is, I think somebody said like halfway executed, and we're only like what, 6 months in, 7 months in. I forget.
Because like you see it with the trans community. It's like first it was bathrooms. That really wasn't working. Nobody really cared, and it was a joke. Everyone's joking about them, and then now it's sports.
Yeah,
and then it's like we're coming after drag queens, and it's not because of drag. And how can we limit drag? It's because you're exposing drag to children. We're protecting the children. It's like what you said, the optics of it.
Yeah, I mean, and also too, it's like quote unquote democracy. Like, can somebody define what that is, please? Now,
I'll tell you what a not is. It's definitely not America.
Yeah, and then
democracy.
Think about it. It's like we think about these issues. They're not in a silo, right? And ultimately, who decides these cases? If you lose by the first level of court, you just keep appealing, and then who are they appealing to? The Supreme Court. What's the Supreme Court? 6 are conservative and 3 are liberal. So that shit's a tactic too. It's like we know what our goal is. Our goal is not to win right now. Our goal is to get it to the Supreme Court so then we win.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. And it's very, very scary. We've seen that with abortion. We've seen that with the injunctions for birthright citizen based on the executive order of birthright citizenship. Like, it's kind of scary. It's not kind of, it's shit scary.
Yeah. Do you think this as a tactic that they learned from the civil rights movements? Because it was they basically taking it and challenging decisions based on the whatever that paper is that everybody bases it on. What's it called? The Constitution?
Just a little thing. I would say that, I don't know. That's a really good question. I think when it comes to, I also have to think about what was the makeup around the time. What was the environment like? That environment was much more quote unquote liberal or left, and during those are leaning towards those times. And also think about the people making the decisions, right? I think it was a much more, from my understanding, a much more liberal court than we have now, because I think, is it 2 or 3 people are Trump appointees at the Supreme Court? I forget which one it is.
I think there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
There's the Kavanaugh.
And Barrett. Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah, Barrett. Those are those 2. And then there was a 3rd one that was appointed. What's her name?
Oh, Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yes.
Yeah.
And who appointed her?
Definitely was during, Biden. No?
Oh.
You know what? Actually, let me double check that. But I say that to say that, like, this is real. This is not just a fucking piece of, like, a court case that some fucking 21-year-old is going to read in law school, and be like, oh, like, let's analyze it so I could learn. These are real implications that have real life effects, and little by little, which has grown so much, are devastating communities. Like, think about it, when this little injunction shit, an injunction is basically like telling someone or something that they can do something or they can't, they must refrain from doing it. They use that shit to really limit DACA. But now it's not okay? Okay, like, what's the truth here? Be like, I would respect more of the court and just be like, well, we fucking hate immigrants. Like, I'd rather respect you telling that shit to my face than justifying it through the law and, like, legal history, because that's what's being used. It's like, well, if this shit didn't exist in the founding fathers, then why shouldn't it exist now? Like, that's the argument. And I'm like, oh, be real with me, bitch. Like, just tell me you hate immigrants.
That's wild.
That is wild. Well, everybody, I think that was a good one. Do you have any other last words?
I don't know. I think I could yap about this forever, but I guess final points is donate to your immigration rights organizations, Esperanza. I would say also Kind. These are organizations that do great work, and there are people who want to do this work, but, little by little have been cut off. And as a result, like, people need to work too, right? And now it's that there's less people doing the work, and now it's burning people and burning people out. So if you have the money, donate, participate in mutual fund, participate in whatever you think you can do with your whatever limitations or challenges or anything that you may be experiencing. But ultimately, I would say do something. Don't just simply repost something. Do something.
There you go. Well, I'd like to say thank you again, Anthony, immigration lawyer, expert.
Thank you.
From all of us here at the Queer LBC, I'd like to thank also our very special guest host, Chello Azul, for stopping by.
What's up, Long Beach? Chello.
I'd like to thank myself, Nino, Dr. Mikey, and Christophe. From all of us here at the Queer LBC, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. Good night.
Nice.